Got that first cap out of the way. Clean it up again. This is what our first cap's gonna look like, okay, you guys? Real nice and sleek, just above being flush. Time to rock out the next one, all right? So again, just gonna go follow that same rule of thumb where I'm gonna lay my rod about center of my rod on that beveled edge on the top. Get a good overlap with the first cap bead that I did, along with getting a good overlap onto that base metal, okay? Again, we're just going to do a little bit of manipulation with the rod so we get a little bit of width on there. Not a whole lot, still staying pretty tight in that puddle. Keeping that constant feed with the rod. Making sure that we keep that puddle real nice and full so we won't get any undercut. And again, I'm just kind of letting the rod do its thing. Clean her up one last time. All right, you guys, I think we got something worth the damn, you know what I mean? So, try to get it right for you guys. So that's gonna be our cap. We're finished out at this point. You notice we're not, see if I get this out burning myself. See how we're not crazy built up, real nice and sleek, tucked in. And we got a good solid root on the backside. That right there is worth a good paycheck if you want my opinion. So if you're wondering why we're kind of rewound a little bit, kind of hit more of the fundamentals, a lot of you, everyone wants to jump on that really big, complex weld. Let me turn this vent off real quick. Yeah, everyone wants to get on that really good, complex, tricky weld, and that's all great. But you got to start here first, okay? It's all about fundamentals. At the end of the day, if you can fundamentally weld very technically sound, you're going to be all around just really good hand. A lot of companies are going to really seek you out just because you have a very good base knowledge. You know the ins and outs of each and individual position. I chose this flat V groove. I know it's one of the more simple ones that you guys start off with. Here at Welding Academy, this is one of the first things you get into in our curriculum, but it's one of the things that directly reflects into pipe, directly reflects into, even with TIG and stuff like that. All of this, and you start being able to manipulate. This is where I kind of made my bread and butter when I first started my career. There's a lot of structural stuff. Nothing wrong with structural, guys. Hey, the world needs bridges and stuff, so you guys don't be afraid to go that route. And like I said before, this directly reflects onto pipe, okay?
Got some questions for you now.
Got some questions? Sounds good.
All right, starting out, what is your favorite tool brand?
My favorite tool brand, if we're talking about like machine-wise, I'm a Lincoln guy. I pipelined for a while, did gas distribution. As far as like power tools, I'm a DeWalt guy myself. They're really affordable. DeWalt is great about the accessibility of them, so you could be in literal nowhere and you could still find DeWalt parts. And they have a lot of aftermarket parts, so stuff like those lock nuts for your grinding wheels, handles, guards, stuff like that. They're all fairly inexpensive and very accessible.
Is it bad to start welding at a young age?
No. I started welding when I was 9 years old. Actually, my daughter, she started welding fairly young. She is pretty damn good at this point. But no, welding's great. It's one of those things, so long as you're with somebody that knows what they're doing, because this is a very hazardous occupation or even hobby. I would say so long as you have someone that is knowledgeable with you, you'll be golden. Start at any age.
All right. What kind of rod were you using for this welding?
I started out with a 6010 or a 5P plus, 1/8 inch. Like I said in the video, it's a good high penetrating rod. It helps you establish and kind of break down that landing that you put on there. And then I switched over to 7018, 332 in size. 7018 is just that good overall capping fill rod. Those are pretty much the two common rods that you're going to use about, I don't know, 90 to 95% of the time out in the field.
Where is Western Welding Academy located?
Gillette, Wyoming. We don't have a whole lot going here, but we got a whole lot going on at the school, so y'all pay a visit.
Any tips for my up-and-coming stick test?
Practice, practice, practice. You know, some people are born just naturally gifted with this. Some people really have to work for it, but everyone has to practice. If you don't think you have to practice, then I'd have to say step off your high horse and join the rest of us.
Any recommendations for first machine stick/TIG combo?
Honestly, I'm self-taught, and I was self-taught off of an old grimy Lincoln 200. So honestly, whatever you get your hands on, those little Cracker Jack boxes that we all seen in our ag class and stuff like that, those are great. Really, anything you can get burning a rod with. Hell, hook some car batteries together and burn some rod.
Do you prefer pancake or no pancake for a mask?
I'm a pancake guy. I've been rolling with a pancake for about 12 years now. They're really versatile out in the field. I would say in a shop scenario where you have multiple welders all around you, maybe like a drop down or like a sugar scoop would be better. I'm just kind of stay true to the pancake world.
What amperage were you running?
With my root, I was running about 80 on a stiff set or a crisp setting. I'm sorry. And with my hot pass, fill, and cap, I was running about 88.
How old do you have to be a welder?
I mean, my daughter started off at 5, so sky's the limit. If you want to be 5 years old or 50 years old, if you have the drive and the interest, get after it.
All right. How do I avoid splatter for stick welding?
Most spatter is caused from either your amperage not being correct, usually you're running a bit cold, or your travel speed. So if you're getting a lot of spatter, address those two things first. If you're still getting a lot of spatter off of that, I'd kind of look more towards your prep and or, you know, maybe something's wrong with your machine. But before you jump the gun on that, make sure your amperage and your travel speed are spot on, all right?
Just got into MIG welding. Any tips?
Have fun. Honestly, address your flaws. That's one thing that we preach, or that I preach to my students. If you have a flaw, spend a whole day doing nothing but your flaw. If you're just getting started out, have fun with it. Put it in a weird position. You know, kind of stand on a ladder. See if you can weld on a ladder. Just any and everything you can try to do with it.
Can you ask about what rod manipulation to use for the root?
Like I mentioned in the video, I do a drag step. It's kind of where you kind of dig in a little bit, kind of do a little bit of gouging to clear the way, keep that keyhole open, and then I step real quick back into that puddle, and then I hold for so long as that puddle is chasing your keyhole, you're gonna be golden.
I heard stick welding is worn out. Is that true?
Not at all. There's a million and one applications for stick welding. It's one of the more versatile ones. With TIG, you have a lot of atmospheric things that can go wrong with it. With stick, you can weld it in the mud, you can weld it in the wind, you can weld it in the thunder, doesn't matter.
Do you prefer Miller or Lincoln?
I'm a Lincoln guy. I kind of sit on the fence with that. I've always ran Lincolns out in the field, but I will give Miller their credit. They have very good shop welders as far as wire feed, TIG, or multi-process. Miller kind of takes the cake on that, but definitely Lincoln out in the field.
What's your favorite exotic metal to work with?
It's not my favorite, but I would say that chrome is one of those ones where you just get kind of the warm and fuzzies when you get it right. But other than that, platinum, stuff like that, there's just a whole lot of prep. There's a whole lot of, ins and outs with it. Kind of slows the process down just a little bit. So I would say chrome's probably my favorite.
Any advice for V-groove vertical?
V-groove vertical, that's a good one. I'm glad that question got brought up. So when it comes to your root, don't take such a big step up. You're gonna wanna do that step technique where you kind of step up, create that keyhole, and get back down on your puddle. Don't take such a big step up, because all you're gonna do is you're gonna heat up a longer area, and then eventually that's gonna get long and wide. Other than that, you're gonna be doing like a weave for your cap. Just stay in that puddle, okay? You'll get real ropey and you can kind of start seeing where your weld and your puddle start breaking up if you don't stay in that puddle. Live in that puddle, keep that arc super tight. And another thing that is just a common problem that we deal with daily is that rod angle with your cap or even with your fills. That rod angle does not need to be at a 45. A good 10 to 15 degree on it, do you just good.
What is your favorite part about being a welder?
Honestly, the experiences. I've met a lot of amazing people. On the flip side, I've met a lot of bad people, but I've been all over the country. I've had opportunities even to go overseas. I never took them, but the opportunities seem kind of endless with welding. I was an Army brat growing up, so I always had that drive to want to go see the next thing over the hill. Welding will do that exactly for you.
What motivates you as a welder?
Initially, what motivated me first was I was one of those guys that just had a natural ability to it. So it just kind of fit in with the rest. I mean, we all got to have a job. We all got to make a paycheck. And you can make a pretty damn good one being a welder. Later on in life, it turned into, now I'm a family man. So, my kids get a lot of inspiration from me as far as, going out and being a blue collar guy, kind of rebuilding the world up. And that's enough for me. Now that I'm an instructor, the drive is to make the next generation that much more better than I could ever have been,
What is your favorite welding position and your favorite welding process?
I'm a stick hand. I broke out doing that about 14 years ago. So my favorite process by far is still stick. And as far as position, to be honest with you guys, none of us like the positions that we get in, but if I was to pick one, it'd probably be a 5G or a 6G. Those two kind of go or sit on an equal stance with me.
What was your first welding job out of school?
My first welding job, I worked for an aluminum livestock trailer company. I was just a MIG monkey, if you guys want to say it. I made $13 an hour, and I learned everything from axles to vents. So I did my time and moved up pretty quickly.
Do you prefer stick or TIG welding better?
I personally prefer stick, I'm sorry. But I definitely will give TIG the credit that it's due. Those TIG hands out there, man, they're some artists. But There's definitely a time and a place for stick, and there's definitely a time and a place for TIG, but me personally, I'm a stick guy.
What is the best way to learn welding? Like, is it better to start on stick or MIG?
If you're gonna go for it, go for it. Learn every process, if you want my opinion. I was always I was a yes man when I first started out. You couldn't give me anything that I would turn down. I will say the biggest step, just getting out and doing it. It's not intimidating. As soon as you get into it and you start getting a feel for it, it's just like riding a bike. But key step is getting out there and trying it.
Do you have any tips for horizontal welding?
Horizontal, what you're going to be fighting most with that is gravity pull. You're going to get a lot of sag if you don't have the correct rod angle, the correct travel speed, the correct amperage, and the correct arc length. Those things all kind of go hand in hand and kind of bounce and play off of each other. So long as you can narrow down and get those real tuned up, you should be golden.
How long does it take to become a welder as a beginner?
I would say you need a solid year, just baseline. After that, the reason why most people are helpers for about 2 years, 18 months to 2 years, is because you need that experience, okay? No one's trying to knock you or anything like that, but you need that much time to see that many different scenarios. So if you were to ask me, I would say realistically, you're looking at 2 years before you break out, and about a year to 2 years after that, before you can like really get a good foothold in what you're doing.
What would you use on stainless cast iron sleeve on a dozer repair?
I wouldn't. If it's cast iron, you're gonna have a whole lot of trouble. The reason why cast iron's casted is because it's extremely porous. It's not really good for welding. To be honest with you, I don't have much experience with cast iron in general, and I really wouldn't put stainless right next to it if you want my opinion.
How long have you worked in the field?
I've worked in the field for about 13 years. I've been here at Western Welding Academy just over a year. And like I said, I first broke out, I was a MIG welder. A year of doing that, I went into chasing oil rigs and kind of doing the all around the country deal. And then I jumped into gas distribution along with a little bit of underwater welding in the mix.
What does your typical day as an instructor consist of?
A lot of problems. No, I'm just joking. No, we have a typical day for me is, get everyone going. We start off our day with our JSAs, our safety meeting. That's very crucial towards any job site or any work environment. And then we get after it. For an instructor, we're going through every process throughout the entire day. So, and I'll jump in one booth and run some overhead TIG open root. I'll jump in the next booth and have to do some 6G downhill. So we stay guessing at Western Welding Academy. We can do it all.
So somebody said that they don't have a garage and they're wondering if it is possible to run a welding machine off of a generator.
You're gonna have a lot of issues, just because you're gonna be constantly flipping a breaker. You're gonna be constantly doing way too much draw off of that generator. Now, don't get me wrong. If you have a generator that can handle the machine, I don't really see the harm in it. But at the same time, whenever it comes to welding, you want to have as proper of a setup as you possibly can, because this is a dangerous, skill to try to learn. So the safer you can make it by having all the proper equipment, proper outlets and all that, the safer you're going to be overall.
What is the best overall purpose rod?
So we call it farm rod. It's kind of the slang word for it. 6011. It'll burn through paint, rust. It'll burn through next week if you let it. But it's one of those good all-purpose rods. Doesn't matter rain, sleet, or snow. It'll dig in and it'll lay down some filler metal.
If I pay tuition, can I weld the Titanic together?
Hey, if you can weld the Titanic together, you're a better welder than me, so I won't say nothing to it.
Tips for stainless root.
Stainless root, slow. I normally do like a back feed dab. where you kind of dab in, work it in, dab, work it in as you go. With everything though, prep, okay? If you do a really good solid prep, that route's just gonna lay in there 10 times easier.
What would you say is the definitive age to become a welder at? Would you say there's one, or is it just whenever?
Whenever. We have students that range from 17 and a half all the way up to, I've had students that were almost double my age in their 50s, early 60s. So if you have the drive and the determination, get after it.
Is 7018 rod good to learn on?
Yes, it is. It's one of those rods where it's definitely gonna expose your shortcomings, but it's also one of those rods that you can kind of sit back on, and you can let the rod do a lot of the work, but it gives you a really good feel of like your travel speed, keeping a puddle real nice and full. You know, I would say it's a great rod to learn with.
Is Western Welding Academy only for stick welding, or are other welding processes here as well?
We have almost every process. We don't have sub-arc, but we have TIG, MIG, dual shield, stick. If you want to learn it, I'm pretty sure we got an instructor that's done it.
What would you say is the number one rule of welding?
Attitude, honestly. If you have to understand that welding is a lot of failure before you succeed. If you can keep a positive attitude towards that and constantly keep chomping at that bit to be better and better than you were the day before, I would say that's the biggest factor. We have a lot of students that come in, they have no experience with welding whatsoever, but they have a drive to them. They have a good attitude, they have good motivation for what they want to succeed in. And I would say right there, if you could bring that to the table along with work ethic, we can train you up.
Do you have any tips for learning TIG?
TIG was one of those ones I was not a natural at. It actually took me quite a while to learn TIG. Granted, I was mostly a stick welder, so a lot of my time was occupied with that. But I would say with TIG, same thing. Have a good positive attitude towards it. You're gonna dip your tungsten. You're gonna have a dirty bead. You're gonna keyhole your root. All those things are gonna happen. But so long as you can learn from every failure with TIG, I would say that that's the biggest thing. TIG's one of those really finicky, really, preparation's really key on that. And you have a lot of things that can go wrong without you doing anything wrong. So long as you keep a positive mind frame on it, I think you'll be golden.
Do you like walking, wiggling, or freehanding more?
I like walking. I don't really wiggle besides when I'm in a route. Other than that, freehand's always good in a pinch. If you want my opinion, learn how to do all of them. They all have their place, and you never know when you're going to need that freehand, so get really good at that.
Do you prefer Miller or Lincoln?
I'm a Lincoln guy out in the field, but Miller in the shop.
What do you think the hardest position in welding is?
One of the harder positions, I wouldn't say is the hardest, but I would say it's probably the hardest to learn, is probably either a 5G or an overhead. A 5G, you have an overhead position as far as when you're coming on the bottom of your pipe. Overhead, like as far as like a plate or a structural test, usually where most people come up short on that is they don't keep that feed up in there, and they end up long arcing, creating a whole lot of problems for themselves. But I would say overall, just position-wise, a 5G is probably going to be one of the more difficult ones. You just have inevitably, you have a blind spot on the bottom of your pipe that you either really need to reach around for or really know what you're feeling.
Do you weld galvanized?
I do not. Galvanized is one of those ones. It's very, I guess, hazardous as far as the byproduct of it burning. I learned that very early on in my career that galvanized kind of makes you feel cruddy after welding it all day. So I never really ventured out on galvanized. kudos to the guys that do, because you guys got iron lungs.
How long does it take for an underwater welder to get certified?
There's a lot of factors that go into getting certified. I'm not going to give an exact duration of time, just because there's so many variables that go involved with it, depending on like how deep you're going, what type of air system you have, what company you're going for, depending if you're doing structural or anything. If you're doing government contract work, of course, that's going to take longer. So it'd be really hard to kind of put like an exact duration of time on there. I would say a rough guess, if you got a good foot in the door, I would say about a year before you're actually like full-fledged, and that's if you are bringing some background knowledge to the table just right off the jump. All right, you guys, looks like that's going to do it for today. Keep tuning in, and we'll see you next time.